Peer pressure is nothing new, but is technology changing the ways teens are influenced? On today's episode of The Lunch Counter, we go inside the world of today's teen.
Hi, I'm Gloria Manning-Smee. My background is as a social worker, and I have a master's in counseling psychology. I've been working with families for about 30 years, and I find that as the time goes on in the days that we're living, there is a lot of conflict sometimes in relationships as well as really rich times, and there's always a lot of people out there that are willing to help.
My name's Shellys Story, and I'm a parent of 3 sons. I run a pretty tight ship at home, and I find sometimes it's a little bit hard for me to let them go out, stay at friends and that, when I don't have control over the amount of time they're spending on the computers and the kind of computer games and stuff. I just need to learn how to parent a little differently.
Hi, I'm Danny Watt, and I'm a grade 12 student as well as the president of my grad class. I think that it's really important for parents to let children figure out things for themselves to an extent and have their own experiences and be able to make their own mistakes and learn from them.
Do you think that kids are growing up too quickly these days? Why or why not?
I would say that, yes, on one hand, but then on the other hand, every generation has said that, right? So I don't really know, because the generation before me said that about me, so now I'm saying that about the generation coming up. But I think that's a natural thing that people will do. They'll look at the generation and not realize that maybe they were thinking these things at such an early age, and now when they see other people 12, 13, thinking about whatever it may be or doing certain things, they think it's early, but maybe not. Maybe it's all perspective.
I think they are. I think it's the influence of Hollywood and all the glamour magazines and everything.
We build our lives today on the shoulders that have passed before us, so kids are likely to grow up faster than their parents, always.
Well, my dilemma is I don't know if you have this experience much, I don't know what your rules are at home for computer and TV exposure, but I'm pretty strict in my house, and I find that kids don't want to come hang out at our house because I don't allow the computer to be on the whole time, or I don't want people up watching movies till 2 in the morning, and then so I know when my son's going to other homes that that's what they're doing, and not always games that I agree with. There are a lot of violent games out there that I wouldn't have in my house, and then plus they're getting all that extra computer time that I think as teens they should be hanging out and I don't know, play Monopoly or something. Don't laugh. Don't you guys do that still?
For me personally, as a young woman, I never really liked video games. I know for my brother, I saw him playing all the shooting games and everything. That was never really appealing to me. And my parents were okay with it. They never really said much because they never really saw it take an effect on him. But for myself, I played with Barbie dolls and Polly Pockets and loved Mary-Kate and Ashley growing up. So it wasn't really an issue with the influences in a sense.
So then when girls came over to your house, you did girl things, and of course, quite often they're more of a gentle variety. So.
They were definitely a lot more gentle, tea parties and dress up and
or hanging out and talking about boys or something.
That was more so the idea. Then computers came into play, and the Facebook did take over a bit.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're quite strict with your kids around that. Your oldest is how old then?
14.
14. And how is that working when he goes to someone else's house? How does that work for you when you know that he's going there and it's kind of out of your control? Do you have a?
It is out of my control. I can't say I don't want you doing that because, I can say that, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
That's right.
And I can't put my values on what. I can't phone his friends' parents and say I don't want them up all night on the computer. That I'd love to be able to do that, but I can't. So when they leave my house, it's out of my control. But yeah, definitely. So therefore, they don't want to be at our house. It's not the funnest place to be.
I think a lot of my friends and their parents had the same values growing up, so going to their friend's house was never really a problem. There was the phone calls, and I was one of the kids who wasn't allowed to bike down the street to my friend's house. They had to meet me halfway. So in that regard, with physical things where I could actually be harmed, my parents were really strict compared to other people's parents, so I'd have to say, but so-and-so's parents let her do this. And I do recall seeing a movie with my dad in about 5th grade and absolutely hating it, even though my friend was allowed to go without parents, but my dad tagged along because I wasn't. So there were some of those issues where it was like, Mom, I'm going to a friend's house, but really I'm gonna see this movie. And I think that happens sometimes when you get told no, then you just want to do it more. And so I almost think it's better to be a little bit loose in that regard, not to not have rules, but to say okay the odd time so that kids don't sneak around and go behind your back.
It's hard with the oldest child. You'll find one day that because you haven't been a parent to a child before. So the
That's
oldest
right.
one, it's like, at what point do you let them ride their bike to school on, you know, all those things are first. They aren't just first for the teen or the kid, but they're first for the parent.
I think one of the things that I've seen working with families that's really important is some of your concerns that you've just expressed, and you as well, Danny, is that we often forget that kids as they get older actually like to be talked with about those kinds of things. And I think, you know, sometimes I've seen it work really well where a parent has sat down and said, I know, you know, if you validate your child's feelings, I know you may feel like this is unfair, or you may feel sadness, or you may be angry, but let me tell you why I'm coming from where I'm coming from, and these are the dangers that I see. And what you're doing is you're actually giving them an opportunity to learn about boundaries. And everybody's family has different boundaries, of course. And so what we want for our children, I remember telling my kids as they're growing up, believe it or not, I actually want you to leave home someday.
Yeah.
I don't want to continue to have to parent you. I want you to be able to make good choices and, you know, reap the good benefits that come from that. And if you don't make a good choice, then you learn, you know, from your from your choices as well.
I agree with that. I agree with that consult idea, but I find in a home with 3 kids that it takes time.
It does,
and it's just like, you know what,
absolutely.
the answer is no, because I'm busy. I've got these other things going on, and I'm not going to sit down and have. So I find that sometimes that adds to my strictness, I think, because there's just so much going on. I don't have time to sit there and, you know, it's just nope, and I'm not going to talk about it because I've got to do other things. I don't have 10 minutes.
Do you think that technology has changed the way that we raise our children?
Oh yeah, completely. Just an example, the natural babysitter that people have, the TV or the internet, you know, they just throw their kid, some people throw their kids in front of the TV or the internet, and they think that's good enough, because mind you, there is good things available on TV and on the internet, but you can't really filter it all at once to just present that package. So you get the good with the bad, kind of throw out the baby with the bathwater kind of thing, you know, you get everything, you know. So a lot of times I think technology does that with people, where, you know, they're not as involved because they figure someone else is, or something digital is monitoring the situation and making sure everything's okay, but it's not always okay.
I think that kids are using technology a lot earlier, and it's expected. Like, kids want to, whereas some parents find the conflict as to letting them use it. So I think it's definitely impacting how kids are being raised.
Oh, definitely it has. I mean, when my children grew up, it wasn't that much on TV that they could watch that would be educational to them. Nowadays, there's all kinds of shows on TV. You get 3- and 4-year-olds playing with cell phones and computers. Definitely technology has changed the way we raise our children, yeah. Whether it's for the good, it probably is in the long run, yeah.
Well, what age did your parents let you go on Facebook, or was this something
I
you just
think
started doing
you were
on your own?
technically supposed to be 13 or 14 to have Facebook, and I know for a fact mine says I'm 2 years older than I really am, because I definitely got it a little early. I don't think I ever asked my parents. I think it was just one of those things, I have a computer, I'm going to get Facebook. Do your children have Facebook? The older one, at
The
least?
oldest one doesn't, and I wanted to be by the book and say, no, you can't, you're too young. And then so he went to the library and got an account. So it's like, okay, well, now that's out of my control, because he can just go to the library and be on Facebook, and I have no control over that. So by him taking his own incentive there, we ended up allowing it in the house. But I do have access to his password, and I said if he ever changes his password, he won't have access to Facebook in the house. I'll just take it off, right? But I can go in there and see what friends are saying and see who his friends are, and if I wonder about some friends, you know, like, oh, why is this 40-year-old person your friend and from Toronto? You know, we have these conversations about why would he want to be your friend? You know, because you play games in common, you got friends your age, so let's just take him off, and we sort of do that together.
Do you find that he's got a lot of peer pressure from his friends right now? And if so, in what areas besides, obviously he wanted a Facebook account, but does he have peer pressure in other areas?
I don't have a...
Does he talk about his friends drinking or smoking or doing drugs?
No, I have those conversations. I ask, you know, are anybody doing drugs? Anybody have a girlfriend? You know, because they're sort of at that age. Some of the kids in grade have girlfriends and some don't. And I sort of ask them what his friends are up to and stuff. And we haven't faced any of that yet. It hasn't. Girls, drugs. It hasn't, he's aware of it, and he knows some people.
You haven't hit that stage where it's being pressured into any
Not
of those
yet.
things you don't
I've
think?
asked him about it, but it hasn't. It doesn't sound like he has yet.
You sound lucky.
Yeah. Well, grade 8. I don't know. To me, that sounds like it shouldn't be an issue yet. I'm expecting it more next year. I know a mother who had a teenage daughter, and they had a little code. So say the teenage daughter was with all her girlfriends, and mom was standing there, and the daughter was getting pressure to go somewhere, maybe somewhere she didn't want to go, and she would, did like rubbed her ear or something like that. So mom would know at the time that she doesn't really want to go, therefore she's going to bail her out and say, so instead of the girl saying, I don't want to go and looking like a jam tart, mom would say, you can't go because this is what we're doing as a family that evening or something. So they had this little communication between each other.
And it was working.
So the girl got to hold it, save her face, and yet mom looked like the bad guy, and that worked out fine in their family. Yeah, it worked out good for them.
A lot of parents are pretty good at having broad shoulders and being willing to be, the quote-unquote bad guy.
Yeah.
But I know that sometimes, in your case or in your case, sometimes where the conflict begins is what happens when there's always, no, I'm not going to do what you say, and that often begins to be a real problem as well. But it sounds like you handled it pretty well. And
the day where they say, I'm going out anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we haven't had that yet, and hopefully you don't, but I'm sure out of 3 children I will have one that at least that will.
Do you have a bit of a
temperament.
game plan as to what you'll do if that does happen?
I have considered like going overseas as a family for a year or something until that time in their life subsides. I really have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would do that. If there was problems, drug problems or something with my teen son,
So you see peer pressure
I would
as a big issue
I would
in your children's
relocate
life?
for a while. Pardon me?
You see the threat of peer pressure being a big issue then? Like a potential issue?
Oh, certainly.
Before it happens?
Yeah. And I think part of the fear comes from being a bit of a problem teenager myself, to know the trouble they can get into having been in that trouble. So it makes me more afraid.